Hello, this is Dr. Farley. I'm going to be going over with you today this new video. I've been meaning to put this together for a long time period. I've been studying this topic, breast cancer, in depth since probably 2009 or 10. I've been studying cancer in depth, but more specifically breast cancer. And when I made this video, I said I need to make this specifically for women that are post breast cancer. They probably went through all of the different procedures, whether that would mean surgery, lumpectomy, mastectomy, double mastectomy, chemotherapy, radiation, and now you're left with where do I go? And my understanding of breast cancer is very deep. It's a personal thing for me. My wife went through breast cancer in 2014. I had 3 little children at the time, and it was really a pretty devastating experience. I remember being on the soccer field with my son, and I got the phone call from the radiologist that said, "Hey doc, this is not good," and then things started to spiral from there. If you're just in the beginning of that process, you should know that it's going to take you a full year by the time you come out of that extremely stressful process and environment. And I'm also aiming this at people that have either been through that process or are going through that process, so I can explain to you some insightful things. But I want to go over with you some really important statistics. First of all, only 5 to 10% of breast cancers can be linked to gene mutations, and this is the BRCA1 and BRCA2. So let's talk about what's causing this stuff, because this is really important for you to have a basic idea of this. So the BRCA1, BRCA2 are tumor suppressant genes. It means they turn off the ability of that cell to replicate. And if in a sense they're broken, then you would keep replicating and grow, and that would be a tumor. So that's what they do. And what they do is they test the women, and only about 5 to 10% of women have that. So 85 to 90% of women, 95% of women don't have that. If you look at some statistics, the last time I had these exact numbers, about 220,000 women a year get diagnosed with breast cancer, 22,000 women a year get diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Now, what percentage of the women that actually get those cancers actually have these genetic glitches? 5%. But if you're over here before you get the cancer and you test positive for those, they tell you there's an 80% risk of getting the cancer. It's only a risk. It does not mean cause and effect, but it makes everybody extremely nervous. So here's the thing you want to understand, especially if you have daughters, which I do, my wife does, or you have a mother, my wife did, that also had breast cancer. You want to know that these genetic tests are not that valuable. They're not. It doesn't mean much. It's only a risk. And because it's only a risk, what we really should be focusing on is what do we actually know is driving these diseases? What's driving this high risk of breast cancer? And it is not genes. So that's the first thing I want you to understand. And from, breastcancer.org says this: about 85% of breast cancers occur in women who have no family history of breast cancer. These occur due to some genetic mutations, again 5 to 10% max. It also is part of the aging process, life in general, and things that they're doing wrong. These are epigenetic factors. Then I want to go over a few other things with you too. When my wife finished up, and I won't mention the name of the hospital, but when she finished up with the top hospital around, our last visit with the oncologist, as we sat there, my wife asked this question: so what do I do? How do I not get this back again? And I sat off to the side, let my wife do her interaction with the doctor every time I went, and then after we would leave, I'd give her my ideas if she wanted to know. Anyway, she asked that question, and the doctor squirmed. She was in her mid-30s. She squirmed, and she looked at my wife and said, well, you would go to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. Wow. um, and do your standard checkups with your OBGYN. Again, simple stuff that anybody would say, but my wife's looking for valuable information now, right? So what else? She says, what about my food? She doesn't really have any answer about that. And then she says something about, what about alcohol? What about wine? Because I've been telling my wife a long time, you better watch the wine, and I'll explain that to you. So the answer she gets back, which was astounding to me, was totally inaccurate, uneducated. And the answer was something like this. Well, the research shows that 3 to 4 glasses of wine a day is healthy for you. Wow, was that bad information? So there was nothing else said, and that's the advice that she got. And what you want to know is that alcohol is a category 1 risk factor for breast cancer, the same way that smoking cigarettes is a category 1 risk for lung cancer. So this idea that you should tell a post-breast cancer woman that just went through a double mastectomy, chemotherapy, and radiation, that it's okay to have 3 to 4 glasses of wine a day, made me realize there's a big problem here. If you leave and listen to that recommendation, you will become one of the death statistics, guaranteed, because it's not going to work. So over time, I've thought about what would I say in this video and what would be the real value in this video, and what I want to try to get someone that may not want to do the traditional route. And what I realize is that 98% of the women that get breast cancer are going to do exactly what my wife did. They're going to go through the standard treatment, and then they're left with, what do I do? That's where I come into play. I realize now that there's no one that has the depth of understanding of this process, what's driving these epigenetic causes of why we get this breast cancer, and hey, what would I be doing on a long-term basis to make sure it doesn't return and come back and get me? And then connecting so many dots that I've been putting together over the last probably 12, 13 years, but a lot in the last 9 or 10 years specifically. And again, directly on cancer, but very specifically on breast cancer. So I also want to talk about the different types of cancers that you may get. And they tell you that you have estrogen positive cancer, you have HER2 receptive cancer. And the estrogen positive cancer, they tell you that this is a better cancer to have because we now have drugs to treat this. And so I looked into this whole thing, and I remember sitting there with the doc that did my wife's second surgery, and I said to him, are you saying that the high levels of the estrogen is what caused this cancer? And his answer was, no. No one can say that. Hang on a minute here, doc. You mean to tell me that everyone that's being told they have estrogen positive breast cancer, that doesn't mean to them that estrogen caused the breast cancer? He said, no, we can't say that at all. Wow. And I already knew that, by the way. So there's another article here from the Journal of the National Cancer Institute, and this was published in January 1998. And basically it says, does estrogen receptor expression in normal breast tissue predict breast cancer? And what we really know is that we can't show at all that there's high estrogen levels inside these women. So what happened over a time frame is we were trying to look at the cell of these different women. And there's going to be receptors on the outside of those cells. If you have high estrogen receptors, then you're called estrogen positive. If you have HER2 receptors, then you're HER2 positive. So basically what happened over a time frame, the estrogen positive women, they found a drug that blocks estrogen or that stops the conversion of testosterone to estrogen, and we started to give out these drugs as if these drugs now are going to prevent the cancer down the road. And the real answer is that we still are missing the cause of why you got cancer. All it means is that your tissue had a receptor. That's all it means. What does it mean in the realm of things? I don't know. But I can tell you this. If I measured my wife 10 years before she got breast cancer, she may still have shown that receptor. Is that a cause? What does it mean? It doesn't mean much. All it means is that you have a receptor for estrogen. So the idea now is we're going to give you the estrogen blocker or the aromatase inhibitor to stop the conversion from testosterone to estrogen. Now, what does that do? Well, the concept is that we're going to block the estrogen, right? But I just got done telling you we can't even show for sure that the estrogen drove the cancer. It's not a proven theory. We cannot say that that's what caused the cancer. So what's the real benefit? Well, the benefit is over a time frame that you may live longer, right? I mean, that's what the whole purpose is here. And here's what we found. There's about a 3% decrease with the estrogen blockers if you take it on a long-term basis for over 5 years. And there's about a 4% decrease in dying if you take the aromatase inhibitors. That's it, 3 or 4%. I mean, who would do anything for 3 or 4%? Then you have to ask yourself, are there any side effects? And there's massive side effects. The risk of hepatocellular cancer goes up dramatically in these women that are using these two types of drugs. So if you decide to use them, that'll be your personal choice. If you decide that you don't think they're safe, that'll be your personal choice. Either way, I just want you to understand what the idea is about these receptors, and then what the drugs actually do, and are we even saying this is a cause of the disease? And the answer is no, we're not. The other thing I want to tell you is the survival rate with breast cancer. Almost everyone survives the first 5 years. And some of the jump in survival that I've seen in the 1990s was not necessarily from the drugs that came out, but because we started to use less birth control. And I will tell you this also, although this is a very controversial thing, it makes sense to me that if you've taken birth control, it could impact the breast negatively. And every doctor that you go to, every single one, will ask you those questions. So even they know that there's some highly likely suspicion that those drugs may drive this process. So on a long-term basis, what I see and what I try to provide for my wife and anyone else that I'm dealing with is, let's look at what are your root functional causes. What are you doing wrong that could drive a process in your body? And what I want to explain also about cancer is this. Cancer is not a mistake. It is not a mistake. It's not a bad gene. God didn't just touch you with the cancer wand. Something you were doing drove those cells to try to survive the bad environment. And over time, those cells had to shift to survive, which is the cancer process. So there's a tremendous amount of research on the metabolic cause of cancer, which means that something's wrong with the metabolics, and over a time frame, our cells just turn into a cancer cell. One more thing I want to talk about also is these tumor suppressant genes and then these oncogenes. They make you think that these are bad genes and these are good. These are good genes and these are bad genes. It's ridiculous. They're marketing terms. So tumor suppressant genes simply means that those genes inside that cell stop replication. Simple. Oncogenes just means that those genes increase replication, and there should be a delicate balance. If there's not a delicate balance, then that's how we can get cells that grow and grow and grow and turn into a tumor anywhere throughout the body. The real question is, why is the body doing that? And there's multiple factors as to why that may be happening. I want to go back to wine for a second and just explain a few things to you. There's a tremendous amount of research that our mitochondria, which is the energy-producing organelle inside the cells inside your body and your breast, they get damaged over time. And what happens is that mitochondria signals back to the nucleus that I can't make energy. So what does the nucleus do? Turn off the tumor suppressant genes and turn on the oncogenes. It starts to replicate. And then guess what happens? It shifts gears into, instead of using the mitochondria to make energy, it starts to burn sugar. So here's where wine comes in. So wine is loaded with sugar. So about a glass of wine, I always say, you might as well have a glass of soda. It's the same exact thing. But we're being told that, oh, wine is good, right? 3 or 4 glasses of wine. I totally disagree, especially if you have any risk of breast cancer or you've already had breast cancer. You better put the bottle of wine down. So it's loaded with sugar. It also has high yeast in it, and we know that yeast can create dysbiosis throughout the body, and most people that are having immune problems and cancer have some form of dysbiosis going on throughout the system. They also have weak mitochondria, and what happens too is as you keep setting the sugar down over a time frame, all of your enzymes shift gears. And gradually over a time frame, your cells just are trying to survive the amount of sugar coming in on a regular basis. And I've seen some of you women out there, you're drinking 3 to 4 glasses of wine at least 3 to 4 times a week. Calculate that out. That is a massive amount of sugar coming in on a week-to-week, day-to-day, month-to-month basis. Also what happens in the, with the wine is there's the pesticides and herbicides, which is definitely a factor in breast cancer and all kinds of other cancers. We know sure that these environmental toxins are coming in and they're messing with us on multiple different levels. And we also know that these pesticides and herbicides, these are what they call xenobiotics or xenoestrogens. They look like the breast tissue and they can create all kinds of issues. So one more thing about wine. And then lastly, there's the alcohol. So what does alcohol do? Well, here's an interesting thing when you drink alcohol. What you're actually, by the way, alcohol increases all cancer across the board for everyone. Everyone. Not just breast cancer, but everyone. So if you're a big drinker, that would include men and women, you really have to be looking at what's happening. So back to alcohol again. So there's a process called methylation inside the body, and your liver does 85% of methylation. Methylation is involved with phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. So when we drink alcohol, what you're doing is you're surpassing the ability of the body to clear out the alcohol, and that's your little buzz that you get. So we're basically putting ourselves into a toxic state. And over a time frame, we can become really depleted in these methyl factors. We also could have other things creating poor methylation. And then trust me, if you want to look at methylation in cancer, major, major, major connection for sure. So that's why I tell everyone, especially women, if you don't want to gain weight, you ever notice too that all the women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, we all start looking a little puffy, we're all gaining weight, we're all laughing, we're all having our glass of wine? It's because you're creating dysglycemia inside the body, you create metabolic problems, you create hormonal imbalances, and everything else that we just talked about. And gradually your cell is basically just barely surviving. And in my opinion, not just my opinion, but the research shows alcohol and wine and the breakdown of the mitochondria is a major contributing factor. Again, category 1, alcohol and breast cancer. Category 1, ladies. So, we've got that. Yeah, here we go. Just a few more things on alcohol. And again, I do have a couple drinks. So no level of alcohol consumption improves health. This is based on the study's conclusion that any potential health benefits derived from consuming small amounts of alcohol is outweighed by the risk of harmful outcomes, most notably cancer. So alcohol majorly raises everyone's cancer. See what else I want to go through. So what has to happen is you need to go somewhere where someone understands proper function and can then look at what's not functioning properly inside of you. So it doesn't matter whether you have breast cancer or you have Parkinson's disease or you have a thyroid issue. We need to have specific testing, diagnostic testing as well, blood work, specialty blood work, advanced specialty blood work, and then come up with what is the root functional cause inside of this person. So I always talk about gears. So you've got to run a lot of tests, a lot of analysis, figure out what's not working properly, and then it's very simple. You fix what you find inside the person. So we're not here to treat cancer. That's what the medical docs do. That's what the integrative docs do. We're here to look at why is the body doing this? What's not working properly? How is everything connected, by the way? Everything is connected. And then how do we get out of this fearful state of, oh my God, I have bad genes? When realistically, the genes account for 5% of all disease. And yes, that includes breast cancer again. So we need to move away from that. We need to start looking at the 95%. So my office is an expert in what I call neurobiomedicine care. We look at functional tests, and then we would run deep diagnostic tests, and we can track someone over time to set up a custom fit plan for you to make sure that you have the best ability to, number one, get as healthy as you possibly can. Number two, restore and improve whatever was not functioning properly. And then number three, have your best opportunity of staying around. Where most people are going to run into trouble with cancer and breast cancer is not the first 5 years. It's usually between 10 and 15 years. It's actually between 8 and 15 years. That's where the trouble comes in, and people get reoccurrences, or they have now the metastasis throughout the body. So what you need is a doctor that can monitor which epigenetic factors may be influencing why your genes went bad, number one. Number two, how can we balance the immune system? You're not trying to boost the immune system. It's ridiculous. And there is no one herb you should take. That's ridiculous also. So instead of taking the toxic drug, someone may say, hey, I want to take this herb. It's still the same thought process. You have to restore function. So the power that made the body can heal the body. We have to figure out what you've been doing wrong, and then what you need to do to stay on track of things. And in my opinion, you need to find someone like me to be in your camp forever. Someone that can be monitoring you and say, hey, where were you, where are you? We all can be very good for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 months, and then gradually we're off track again. You need to be checking with someone to say, hey, where am I? I want to make sure that I can restore normal physiology as best I can, and I want to stay as healthy as I can for as long as I can. So my office focuses on helping you identify those areas there. We look at 5 different areas of treatment: brain-based care, cellular energetics, lifestyle, foods, and nutrients. And in there, we can set up custom fit plans to talk about what are your specific root functional causes. So if this video made sense to you, you should reach out, contact the office to set up a consultation. The consultations are free. We'll have a conversation. I'll let you know some insights. I've been through, again, the entire process myself. And I know plenty of people that have been through the process. I know a lot about everything I just explained to you. I can share with you scientific references on everything that we're talking about here. And you know, what I do is very, very different than what anyone else is doing for people that have this issue here. And my hope is that I can reach out to women, have you understand that we can lower your fear, the genes are not coming to get you, and that we can set up a real plan based off real objective tests to have you have your best opportunity of regaining your health and being around for a long time frame. For you, your families, your kids, and doing the things that you want in life. So I hope this made sense. And again, if you'd like to set up the free consultation, reach out to the office. You can text, call, or email, and we'll set up the consultation. The consultation, again, is free. We'll have a conversation, and we'll see if you should move on to a step 2 examination or not, and then we'll go from there. So thank you, God bless you, and have a great day.